So some of you guys might have seen on my Instagram that I was in Ibiza for almost 9 days. And today's video will be about what I actually did in Ibiza and who I was with. You guys might wonder where I'm actually at, because this is not like my flat in Cologne. But since it's Easter holiday in Germany, I'm visiting my family over the weekend, and therefore I managed to record this video in my old child's room. So I was invited to stay in Ibiza for almost 9 days with my friend Louis and his manager Marley. And what we did was we created content for the villa itself, which means I took a bunch of photos of the entire place. And guys, this villa has been crazy big. I mean, 5 sleeping rooms, and every one of them had a separate bathroom. There was a dining area, there was a library area, there was a living area, a table tennis area. And as you guys can see, it was beautifully designed, like super clean, a little bit bohemian, vintage kind of vibe, just by having so much space and being surrounded by all the beautiful plants and greens and fruits. And I mean, this place has a grapefruit garden, a veggie garden. It's just incredibly big. Of course, it had a super beautiful swimming pool, and it was just one of the most beautiful villas I've ever been. And I'm still incredibly thankful for having the opportunity to shoot this villa. So when you're shooting architecture and interior, it's kind of nice to show how big something is. And in order to show how big something is, I would highly recommend a wide angle lens. In my case, I used the 1635 2.8 G Master lens, which gave me the flexibility to just zoom in and out. And one tip that I also can give you is showing unique angles of the villa. I mean, 60 millimeters, for example, allow you to really fill the entire image with a lot of information. For example, placing one object over here, putting the next over here, and even something more right next to it. So when the viewer looks at one of your photos, he's really impressed by information that you show on the picture. And this is different from shooting portraits, for example, because in portraits you often want to focus on one object only, and showing architecture and interior design can be very different from that, since you want to show a bunch of things and how they look together. What you also can do is showcase just one singular object with a 50 mil or 85 mil, for example, and just focus on one thing only. But I think this would be more mood board pictures. I mean, you really have to know what the client actually wants from you. And our client wanted us to show how big the entire space is. And therefore I mainly shot on the 1635, and it did a great job for us. But as I said before, we weren't blessed with sunshine only. I mean, we had rain for 2 or 3 days non-stop, crazy. I mean, all we did was just being at home, which obviously isn't that bad if you are in a place this big. But of course, if you fly to a sunny place, we imagine it to be sunny. So the question is, what you're gonna do if it's not sunny? And of course, I mean, rain isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it just limits you at what you can actually do. And since we had rain for almost 3 days in a row non-stop, I still used my time for doing things that I don't have that much time for when I'm busy shooting outside. So I still got up very early, 7ish, and I had a coffee in the morning, and I used the time to read a lot and to focus on things that I don't have that much time for usually, which is rebranding my website, for example. If you guys want to have a look, there's a link down in the description. And I think we always tend to predict something oh, I'm gonna be in Ibiza, there's gonna be sunshine only. I think what was really nice about the rain actually is that we were forced to slow down a bit. I mean, this is something that is actually happening during to COVID, like for almost more than a year now. And I think we as humans, we always like want to predict how something is going to be. For example, I'm going to Ibiza, it's going to be sunny every day, but when it's not, it's really like it forces you to rethink what you're actually doing. And this is why I actually enjoyed the rain. So after 3 days of busy laptop work and 3 days of rain, we still had 3 days left for shooting the entire villa. And while shooting with Luis in the villa, we also took some photos with this little fellow. I mean, we took a bunch of digital photos with my Sony, a bunch of film photos with my M6 and the Yashica that I brought from a friend. But shooting with the iPhone, I mean, I've never done that before since I only owned an iPhone 8 with a pretty shitty camera compared to like what the iPhone 12 Pro Max, I don't know, thing offers you today. But since I upgraded to the iPhone 12, I really enjoyed taking pictures with it because it has a pretty decent camera, and just being able to snap a bunch of pictures. I really like, I wouldn't consider myself to be an iPhone photographer at all, but it's pretty fun. And I'm gonna show you some of the pictures that I took with Luis, and I really enjoy these ones because it's pretty fun, and I think the iPhone does a pretty good job, especially when you wanna have everything in focus, and especially if you wanna create a pretty native picture for the viewer. I mean, everyone nowadays owns a smartphone, and I think if the viewer has the feeling that he or she could possibly have taken the exact same image, I think this is one thing that makes iPhone images so strong and outstanding for me, in the sense that it's really authentic, and it could just be a snapshot of something. And just by having that in mind, I really try to do some snapshots every now and then when I have portrait shootings or when I'm just on the road. And I really like how the pictures turned out, since you can like create different angles and also zoom in with the lens. I think the look that everyone's going for at the moment is like, I'm not really caring, but I'm still kind of like, at least a bit, I don't know. It should be not on purpose when it actually is, or the other way around, I don't know. But what iPhone photos actually can do pretty nice is creating an authentic image. And yeah, I really enjoy how all the photos turned out. So if you're on your next job or your next portrait shooting, or if you're just on the road, just give it a try and see what you will come up with. And Luis and me, we managed to drive to a really nice coast, like 10 minutes drive or so. And I was really overwhelmed just by being by the sea and smelling fresh and salty air and just having a view of the ocean and the coast. This is really, I enjoy this so much. And since I was with Luis, of course, we did a bunch of photos, and I really enjoyed the photos that I took with Luis right by the cliff. I mean, we managed to shoot some photos to get a decent view of where we were actually at. I mean, placing the coast in the background, like giving it an overall view of the entire scene. But we also did some shots just by turning around, and we used the harsh light and like the contrasty shadows to also get some pretty nice shots of Luis. And just around the corner there was a pretty nice concrete building with a super clean wall, and doing some shots over there had a pretty nice like mixture of the nature of Ibiza, but also like this industrial and clean and modern kind of vibe. And I really enjoyed shooting there with Luis. When we finished shooting at this coast spot, we drove like 20 or 30 minutes to our next spot, which is called Vidra. And this is like another incredible coast view in Ibiza, but you get an incredible view to Vidra, which is kind of like a small island, but it looks more like there is no one living. It's basically just a rock formation inside the ocean. And looking at the pictures on the internet, I was like, okay, I'm not sure if this place is gonna look nice, but when we just got there, it was breathtaking. I mean, if you ever make it to Ibiza, make sure to visit Esvidra, because I've never seen a view like this. And I think a lot of you guys might like this as well. When we arrived in Esvidra, we still had a little issue going on since we were like 1 hour away from sunset, which means the light was still very harsh. Of course, I wanted to include the rock formation in the ocean and Luis in the picture. So what we did was we walked around the coastline in order to frame properly what I was wanting to frame. And when shooting portraits, something that's really important for me is like make sure that the subject is lit up well. I remember when I did my first portrait shootings back in the days, like 4 years ago, I didn't really pay attention to like how lit up the subject is. I focused more on the background and like the composition, but this changed over time. So when I do portrait shootings nowadays, I pay a lot of attention to how the light is. I mean, if you want to focus on someone in a picture, you should make sure that he or she is lit up correctly. And this is why photography is so interesting, because you can shoot in like 1,000 different ways. I mean, every photographer would do this differently, I think, but just by doing a bunch of portrait shootings over time, you really learn like what's most important for you. And this will ultimately improve your way of shooting portraits in the future. I really liked how the pictures turned out with Luis. And since you're seeing so much POV footage in this video, there will be a POV only video about my time in Ibiza, because besides all the digital photos that you just saw, I of course shot a bunch of film in Ibiza, and the POV video will be about all the digital and of course the film photos that I shot. And there will also be a video about how I edited all the photos with Luis, so you guys can get a little insight about how I like edit my pictures. And if you don't want to miss any of the future videos, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your support, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy Easter!